I don't know what's more dysfunctional about this whole Trump for president campaign. Donald Trump and his racist and inflammatory rhetoric, or the people who support it. Because I look at this whole Trump for president situation, and it pretty much shows me, how messed up this country truly is. The fact that a guy like this, who can say all of these inflammatory and racist things, is at the top of the polls, pretty much shows me how totally screwed up the American people truly are. Because I look at this guy, and it's like David Carroll was talking about in his own videos regarding this Donald Trump. He has no specifics on anything regarding foreign policy, economics, um, business, foreign relations. He has no specifics on any of these things. When you look at Donald Trump, mostly all he is he plays to people's emotions. He tells people, inflammatory, controversial statements that make them feel good, but he doesn't come to you with a specific plan on how he would lead the country. He reminds me, like Mr. Carroll has said, about Barack Obama. Barack Obama talked a lot about change. And at the end of the day, after 7 years, what did we get? Nothing. Same thing would happen with Donald Trump. It's just basically you're trading a Democrat for a Republican version of the exact same person. And I see it as the second Republican version of it, because George W. Bush, in my eyes, was pretty much the exact same thing. I mean, here was a guy with no plans, no specifics, and no direction. And this is the big problem with America, is that we are looking. I mean, people don't really understand what leadership, I believe, is. They don't understand, what a leader is supposed to have. A leader is supposed to, not only inspire and motivate people to move forward, but they're supposed to set a comprehensive plan for what direction they want things to be set in. When you listen to Donald Trump, there is no plan here. I mean, I listen to some of his rhetoric. He talks about he's going to get the Mexicans to pay for a wall to keep the Mexicans out. Do you listen to the logic of that statement? How is a government going to build a wall just because you said so? This is another government. This is, you know, a government that we have diplomatic relations with. If this is what his foreign policy is going to be, you know, it shows me that he's pretty much dysfunctional regarding things, regarding how things work. I mean, you just can't go around yelling stuff and pointing fingers at people and then hope things get done. I mean, I remember when the U.S. tried that stunt with OPEC back in the 70s, and guess what happened there? That's how you wound up with gas lines, going out the door, and U.S. economy getting crippled because you elect somebody like this who says a lot of emotional rhetoric but doesn't understand how delicate diplomatic situations truly are. And when you bring this type of guy and you see that he's surging in the polls, that really says, something sad about the American people. When you look at the American people, they sit there and they talk about they want change. They want things to be different, but they have no idea what change involves. Again, change is a painful process. And the big problem I see with the most Americans is that they want everything to change back to the golden age of the 1990s, where everybody had jobs, everybody had money, and everything was going well. It's not going to happen again. We're not going to get another 1990s like people many years ago. There was a roaring 20s in the 1920s where everything was booming, and we're not going to get a golden period like that again. I mean, the dot-com bubble has burst, and the economic conditions are just never going to be that good again. So unless people start rolling up their sleeves and start creating, new businesses and new infrastructure, that change isn't going to happen. And a lot of the sad part is with most American people, they don't want to, go through the hardship of change. They don't want to roll up their sleeves, get their hands dirty and go out here and do the work that change requires. A lot of these people, they just want to hear a slogan, a pitch man talking about change. And what's happening with them is They don't understand what this involves. I mean, that's why Barack Obama conned, as I see it, many of these American people by telling them that they were going to get change. And, people don't understand that, again, change starts with us. I mean, the first three words of this Constitution were "we the people." And if we want things to change, then we're going to have to, again, roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty to make that change happen. No government alone is going to do that. I mean, that's something for us to do. If you want a better society, again, that starts with you. If you don't like the direction that your society is going in, that starts with you. But all guys like Trump do is, again, they play to your emotions, and most importantly, they give American people somebody to blame. Because all Trump does is he points his fingers at the Mexicans, he points his fingers at black people, he points his fingers at the Chinese, he points his fingers at a whole host of people to blame. And I remember there was a certain man in Germany back from 1939 to 1945 who used to point his fingers at a group of people, and we saw where that went. Yeah, that's Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler used to make the same type of speeches that Donald Trump makes, where he sits there and he points people out, he blames people, he shames people, he bullies people, he intimidates people, and he gives them an enemy. This is what Adolf Hitler did. This is what Donald Trump is doing right now. He gives you an enemy so that you can look at that person and say, that's the person responsible for America being on decline. When in actuality, it was white guys like Donald Trump who were the ones responsible for America being in decline, because they were the ones who created the financial mess that collapsed the economy in 2008. It was these, these mortgage schemes like the subprime mortgage mess, and giving mortgages to people who were on SSI and all sorts of welfare. You're giving these people mortgages, people who weren't ready for mortgages that partially was one of the reasons that collapsed the U.S. economy and led to companies like Bear Stearns going out of business, and pretty much even sending countries like Greece into a financial tailspin. It was these white guys that created this mess. And what's more really insane about it is that these same American people are getting behind this man who pretty much, it represents the group of people who pretty much collapsed the American economy. But you're going to go and vote for this guy. This guy, all because he tells you what you want to hear. And I say, sadly, who's stupider, Donald Trump or the American people? Because I look at the American people and, they support the most dysfunctional and ridiculous people I have ever seen. I mean, these are the same people who were standing there with George Zimmerman. And it's like, you sit there and go, you're standing there with this guy, you're supporting this guy who he's an idiot. He's basically an idiot. But I look at it as a commentary on the sad state of affairs that America is. I mean, I look at America and it reminds me, again, very much of Germany before the Nazis took over. You have people blaming other people, blaming people who had absolutely nothing to do with things for the sad state of things. And then you have people going out to support, political candidates like your Donald Trumps who point fingers at people but have no comprehensive plan on how to do things. And I look at America, and again, it reminds me so much of Germany before the Nazis took over. And, this is what the sad state of affairs that it looks like it's coming, to America. It looks like, we're headed on that trajectory. And you have, again, I look at the whole picture from a big picture perspective, and this is what it looks like. You have people supporting this candidate. This candidate is leading in the polls. That's not good for America. That's not good for America. But most Americans, they're sitting there completely clueless, listening to this rhetoric, listening to this propaganda, listening to this guy make statements that are just completely illogical, not giving you any specifics on anything, and you're getting and you're thinking about voting for this guy based on emotion, almost like the way people were thinking about this Barack Obama. A lot of people only voted for Barack Obama because he was the black candidate. They didn't look at his platform. They didn't look at, his views and his opinions and, his policies on things. They didn't look at that. And it's like, you fall for the same okie doke, and instead of it being a black president that is messed up, you're going for this same white guy on the exact same reason. It's like, that's why I say the big problem is not the candidates. The big problem is that these American people are pretty much a mess. And this is like a sad commentary on these American people. These American people, they're completely, as I see it, they don't know what they really want. They're sitting there talking about they want change, and I guess a lot of them, they grew up, spoiled, so they have no idea, what change requires, what change entails, and how painful the process of change is. All they hear is a slogan, and they run for it, and they're sitting there so busy wanting this, but they don't know, again, what this entails. Because if you really had to go through change, you wouldn't want to deal with that again, and you would try to make every effort to maintain what you have. Now, a lot of these people, they want change. What they really want is to go back to that golden age of the 1990s, or like the grandfathers and fathers did. They want to go back to the golden age of the 1950s and the 1960s, and even if a few of those elderly people are still alive, they want to go back to that so-called golden age of the 1920s. But none of these people understand that for everything that goes up, everything comes down. Basic economic cycle works like this: there's a trough, a rise, a peak, and then a decline, which is a recession, and then the cycle starts again. And the whole thing that impedes this cycle from starting all over again are, tricks and gimmicks, and, having the wrong people in management in American business, and the wrong people in your political system. And I look at the American political system, again, it reminds me so much of Nazi Germany. Not Nazi Germany, pre-Nazi Germany. We have a Congress that is completely ineffective. We have a president who is completely ineffective and incompetent. We have local politicians who have no sense of direction or no sense of focus. And we have a country pretty much running on autopilot. And we have a bunch of people sitting around talking about how they want change, but they have no idea what they're changing into or what they're going to change towards. And they have no idea that what they're doing, may undermine the very same concepts of their own country, and the very ideals of their very own country. Because what you want to change to, again, you're trying to go back to a period in the past instead of trying to focus on building towards the future. And I look at, politics from this global perspective, and this is what I see, regarding this Trump campaign, and this is what I see, all over the world. You have people trying to go back instead of trying to move ahead, and I look at this whole Trump presidency, and again a sad commentary on not Donald Trump, but on these American people. Because these American people, you look at them, and they lack the intelligence and the critical thinking skills, to really take a really long, hard look at this guy and listen to the things that he says. Yes, he makes you feel good, but there's a difference between feeling good and taking action. I mean, a pastor makes people feel good, and he gets 10% of their money every week. But as for action that improves their community, these churches pretty much show, their fruits on that point. And the same thing with this Trump. He makes you feel good, just like President Obama made people feel good. But when you look at the fruits of his labor, when you look at the goals that he was supposed to accomplish, which was, changing this economy so that there would be, people employed in middle class jobs, and then bringing the American economy back to a stronger point, he failed on that level, and he failed on other levels. But people are so busy listening to speeches and being comforted by speeches, they're not looking at the actions being done by their president, by their Congress, and they're not looking at their country and the direction it's going in. And then they don't even see, how the vicious cycle is getting ready to start all over again. I mean, when I look at Trump being the leader in the polls, that's a very, very sad state of affairs, for America. It says that, for the so-called best educated people in the world, it doesn't seem like they're smart enough, to figure out that the candidate that they're trying to support is dumber than a box of rocks. And that really, again, is a condemning statement about the sad state of affairs, regarding how politically retarded not only black people are, but most Americans are regarding their own, political system. I mean, I look at this whole Trump candidacy, and it's again a condemning statement on this country. I mean, who's more dangerous, Donald Trump or the people who support him? When I look at the bigger picture, the people who support him are 10 times more dangerous than Donald Trump will ever be. Because this is what I saw in the case of Trayvon Martin. Who was more dangerous, George Zimmerman or the people who supported him? Because the people who supported George Zimmerman were the ones who harbored those feelings, about black people and had those ideas about black people. And what makes them the most dangerous of all is because these people hide behind a George Zimmerman or they hide behind a Donald Trump, and they use him as the conduit to express their racist and dysfunctional views. And when this guy falls, they go back to going to hide in their hiding places until the next guy comes out for them to express their views and ideas for. This is what makes these guys dangerous. This is what makes these people dangerous, is that they are really truly cowards, and they need this guy to stand behind because they are too afraid to express these views on their own. They're too afraid to present these views on their own, and they really have no ideas. Because when you look at a Trump presidency, all it is emotion. It's nothing logical behind it. There's no business behind it. There's no business policy behind it. The guy has not set any platform or any ideas, forth. Telling people that you'll get in the face of China, the guy who the country that manufactures all of our goods. Again, that's dangerous talk, because that's the kind of talk that led to the Arab oil embargo back in the 70s, and the kind of talk that you talk in Mexico. These Hispanic countries, they give us most of our fruits and vegetables, and when you alienate people like this, they can cut you off in an instant. And leave this country pretty much crippled. Without these countries, bringing all these imported goods in, because our economy, again, is consumer based, and most of our goods come imported. You get in the face of these people, and you've pretty much killed your own economy, dead. I mean, you have pretty much crippled it, because nothing in the United States is manufactured in the United States anymore. U.S. economy right now is a consumer and service based economy. It is not, a manufacturing-based economy. All of our stuff comes from overseas. And when you have a political candidate talking about getting in the face of all these countries which control, all the resources and the manufacturing, that's detrimental to the big picture of America. And this guy, a lot of these people, again, they're thinking about rhetoric. They're listening to the speeches, listening to the fire, but they're not listening to the specifics. When you listen to the specifics, you really realize that this candidate is not the best candidate overall, and you really shouldn't be putting, even considering to cast a vote for this guy, because long term, America's economy right now is really in a fragile state. It really has not recovered, again, because a lot of Barack Obama's policies weakened it, like this Affordable Care Act, that really weakened the economy, and other policies he's participating in have weakened the economy. And you look at those policies, and then you have this guy talking about he wants to go and do some radical stuff. None of this stuff is going to help this economy, get itself right. And the economy right now has not been functioning properly, I say, for at least a good 12, 13 years, because even during the Bush years, it was running on credit, and you had people running schemes like the subprime mortgage mess, and the economy has not had a good chance to correct itself. And if we keep going, because if Americans, they just don't understand how things work, they don't understand. There are a lot of people, again, they went to college, they're educated, but they're not smart. They're not looking at how things work in a big picture situation. They're not looking at the direction that the country's supposed to be going in. And if you look at the country from a big picture perspective, you really see how screwed up things truly are, and you see how much hard work is really going to have to be done. And when you look at your president and your Congress who are just twiddling their thumbs and coasting on and letting the country run on autopilot, you really realize that if we don't get this, if we don't get some real leadership in here, there may not be a United States left. And when you have people, you know, trying to consider a candidate who is using, tactics I haven't seen since, historical things of Adolf Hitler and the SS, and people getting behind this in large numbers, you see that the country is, headed on a bad track. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.